Hi and welcome to this demonstration of the practice library. So in this video we will show how a practice publication can be navigated and used. So here we will browse the Agile Timeboxing Essentials practice that is included here in the Agile Essentials method. I scroll down a bit here so you can see Agile Timeboxing here, bottom right. So this can be done by clicking this practice from this home page to drill into its publication. So I do that. So here we can now browse the content of the practice publication. So here we see an overview of the practice elements in this particular practice. We can also see them here listed to the left here in the tree browser. So we can then select to look at one of these elements like Timebox, for example. So let's click that one. So now when I navigate to this element, the guideline for this element is being shown. So here we can read more details about this particular element. So here we see that this element is an alpha, as is shown here by the top left icon. I can also hover over this icon to see the corresponding definition of what an alpha is. So here in this case, as you can see here, it's an essential element that is relevant to an assessment of the progress and health of a software engineering endeavor, and so on. So in this case, as you can see here on the guideline, there is also an icon here top right that is a special icon for this particular element that can be used in certain contexts like we will see later. And then there is a brief description of what this element is all about here. So a time box is a short fixed time period, so on. So if we scroll down a bit here in the guideline, we find an overview table here showing some relevant information related to this particular element. So for example, this time box is being related to work, which is another alpha here. So we use time boxes here to basically control work here in our project. The timebox alpha can also be described by a work product, in this case a timebox plan. So here the work product would be a document, but in general a work product is something that is being created and managed to describe an alpha. This timebox is also related to a number of patterns that can provide additional help and support as we work with timeboxes. For example, smart objectives here. Now if I click these links, I will navigate into the guidelines of these corresponding elements, of course, but I will not navigate links here now, so we just stay on this page to look at the contents here for a while. We can also see that there are a number of activities here to progress time box. So for example, to plan and review a time box. These would be activities to work with this particular element. And then at the end of the guideline, we find a listing of resources that are relevant for understanding and using this element. So these can be external resources, and that would be external to this publication that we are looking at here. So here we can find links, for example, to the Scrum Guide and other external information. And also if I click this link, you'll see that we get into another publication here of in this particular case the Scrum Guide and so on, so I can access information like that from our practice. Now I'm going back to our practice here. So this is a key thing to understand, that as we capture and essentialize practices as published here in the practice library, we only capture the essentials of these practices, and then we refer to additional and external information as resource links, as you can see here. So this is a key thing to understand when it comes to these practices as they are being published here. Now we can also browse the card for this particular element. So if I click this button here to browse cards, we can see a view of the card for this particular element. This card is typically what you start to use when you start to adopt a practice in the team or project. So these cards can be printed and used hands-on to plan and drive work, to play games with and so on as you work according to the practice. And then when more details are needed, you can turn to the online publication here to get more information from the element guidelines and then the resources that are associated with these guidelines. So this is one way of navigating into the publication and getting more information about its elements. Now, of course, when we view cards like this also we can navigate within the cards. So you can see here there are some links on the cards that can be navigated. So from Timebox to work, and I can also view an overview of the practice showing all its elements and then go into perhaps another element and view that and so on. So in this way I can actually reach all the cards also by only navigating the cards. But all the time I will also see the context here to the left in the tree browser where I am, so to speak, in the practice. So we can also look at overview nodes here in the practice, like the things to work with. So if we look at that node here, we can see that this is an overview of all the alphas and work products in this particular practice. So here we have, for example, progress board and timebox plan, etc. that are work products here in the practice. And I can, of course, also from this overview navigate into the particular element if I'm interested in learning more about it. And in the same way we have other overview nodes like things to do, showing all the activities within the practice here, and here also as activities are being grouped into activity spaces. And of course I can navigate into these elements also from the diagram. We also have competencies. So here we see, for example, leadership and management being required by this particular practice, and also you see the numbers here like 3 and 2. These are the actual competency levels that are being required by this particular practice. We also have an overview of the patterns here. So here like regular heartbeat and smart objectives. And of course I can navigate into these and get more detailed information about the various elements. So overall it is fairly easy to navigate in this publication and access what we need to access. Also, when there are many elements in a publication, it can be useful to be able to search for elements. So for this purpose there is a search box here. You can see here at the top in the tree browser. So for example, if we try to search for the word plan, you can see that the corresponding elements and nodes here in the practice publication are being highlighted. So I can easily identify them and go to them if I want. We also have a few other nodes here in the publication, as you can see. So, for example, resources. Here we collect all the resources that we want to embed and make available within the practice publication. So, for example, cards we want to embed and make available as separate resource files. So if we go here and look at the cards here, you can see that there are a number of entries available here, like a PDF showing the detailed cards for this particular practice. So I can access these files here also from within the publication. There are also other resources like data sheets for the practice, in this case, references, and these are references that is a collection of all references from all elements in this practice. So I can access all references here if I like to. So this is briefly some words about the resources. There is also a glossary available listing all the elements of this practice and the brief descriptions in alphabetical order, so we can easily navigate to a specific element and read about it here also if we like to. There is also an Essence language key available, collecting and showing the brief definitions of the key elements of the Essence language. There is also something here called description levels. So when we publish an essentialized practice, it is on a certain level, depending on how much detail we put into the practice. So if I look at the top guideline here in Agile Essentials, we can see that the description level of this particular practice is on the outlined level. And I can also navigate to this page to understand what is meant by this outlined level. I can read more about the implications of that here. So this means that the practice library may contain publications on different levels of detail. So for example, the essential unified process practices are on the elaborated level here. So they would be on a more detailed level and provide more details in their publications. Now, this was a brief look at the publication of the practice. So let's go back to the Agile Essentials homepage here, to go back to where we came from. And then we can start to browse other practices here, of course, if we like to. But this concludes the demonstration of the practice library, where we have been browsing a specific practice publication. Thanks for watching.